What is going on, legend? This is Angus Fairbairn, and you've got an absolute treat in store for you with this video. This is a tight and toned, lean and mean, epic success story based interview that you're going to be hearing me go through with one of my epic, awesome clients from about 5 to 6 months ago, Jessica Davey. Now, she's someone who was involved with Herbalife, was someone who was used to restrictive eating, used to basically demonizing carbs, and thought she had tried absolutely everything when it came to being able to lean down and achieve a tight and toned body. But then, hey, your main man Angus came along, blew her mind, coached her in all things flexible dieting and living a life of moderation, not deprivation, getting rid of cardio and just bringing about a whole heap of epic changes. And she now is an amazing, epic human being, has leaned down so much, is eating more than double what she was before, and has obviously found a new lease on life. So make sure you pay close attention to what we're going to be sharing in this video. I'm going to be asking her some questions, and we're just going to be going into depth into where she was, where she is now, her big learnings in between, and just educating you as much as possible so that you've got some epic take homes to apply into your own journey to move forward faster. Enjoy, and looking forward to seeing you on the inside. So here I am joined with the lovely Jessica Davey. Jess, awesome to have you here. How are you, my friend?
I'm amazing.
Amazing! Yay! I'm amazing too. That reminds me of the Lego movie. Everything is awesome. But lovely to have you here, my friend, and the aim of the game today is to be able to highlight some of the amazing, just your amazing journey. You're someone who was, like many women, worldwide, struggling with your nutrition. That was affecting your exercise, it was affecting your general well-being, it was affecting a lot of things. Yet here you are on the other side of things, a lot more leaner, a lot more stronger, confident. Well, let's face it, you've changed almost entirely as a person over such a relatively short span of time when you consider how long people go out their journeys in standard. So I've got some awesome things planned, and today's going to be interview style, so we're going to be touching on the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between, and me trying to drop some epic knowledge bombs, so that way for you listening, you're going to gain some epic value from checking out this video. So lovely Jess, let's kick off with you sharing a bit about where you were before you got in touch with myself. Share a bit about what your situation was, what you were doing, and obviously just how your weight and health and stuff was holding you back before we actually crossed paths.
Thanks for that introduction. It's crazy to think how different I really am today to, I think it's nearly just under a year that I got in touch with Angus, and I was living a lifestyle for about 4 years where I was just up and down trying many different things to lose the weight. I'm someone who's always trained, I was working in the Navy for about 6 years, so I've always been into fitness, into exercising, not so much for the way I look, just because it was a really good way for me to start my day. But then I just got to a point where I was exercising so much and just not changing, and it just got really frustrating. I was part of a company which I basically did smoothies twice a day, did the eating every 2 to 3 hours, having protein snacks, and just trying to eat clean. And obviously that meant I was really tired, really restricted, and I could lose a lot of weight. I lost about 20 kilos quite fast, and the next year gained about half of that back, and it was really hard. And then the next year, I'd lose some, but I would gain it just so quickly, and I just felt like I was going in this vicious cycle, and I was just, really confused about what to do. So I was always looking and researching different ways that I could be healthier, how I could still enjoy food. I definitely didn't have a good relationship with food or even the scales. The only way I measured my results as well was through how much I weighed. So that was something definitely that I've changed now. But it was just really frustrating. I just felt so lost. I didn't feel confident, and I just felt like every single year I was getting worse. Like I was just getting bigger. I wasn't seeing the results of gaining weight, and I just, when you are gaining weight as a woman, you think, okay, so I'm just going to be really restrictive, drink lots of water, have chicken and salad, and it's just not the way to live. And it was really hard and really tough. And I think the biggest thing for me is I was asking people stuff, but everybody was the same, but I was surrounding myself around at the time, cut back. That was basically what people told me. So yeah, it was hard.
So hard is one of the big key things there. Restriction was one of the big things that you mentioned a couple of times. and you know, that aspect of it just being like an up and down yo-yo I should say, you know, type roller coaster experience. And you know, I'm sure you listening as well, you know, can relate to this, and I certainly can as well, because that was exactly how my life was for some time before I discovered what's called flexible dieting, which changed the game for me and also changed the game for Jess. But what's interesting there, Jess, that you mentioned was that like you were putting in a lot of effort, and you know, you definitely weren't lazy by any means, like, and by standard, you know, you pretty much had all bases checked. Yeah, hence obviously the confusion as to just like, why aren't I moving forward? Like, is it because I'm some sort of genetic freak that just can't lose weight? Like, what the fuck's going on? But obviously, like, the longer that went on, the more pain and the more, you know, just I guess, you know, stress that obviously caused. And you know, like, obviously what you were unaware of at the time was that really one of the biggest things that Jess was struggling with was the fact that because she was under eating massively, we worked out that she was probably eating about 1,000 calories or less, which for her body weight at the time and her amount of exercise was probably about half the amount of what she should be eating. So what was very, very scary for Jess was when we actually started together was just like, holy shit, that's how much food I should be eating. And this was very similar for me as well. I remember when I first started, because I was also under eating massively, and it just goes to show that you know, like, I guess when the goal is weight loss, undereat, go for gold, because you will lose weight quickly, just like what Jess experienced. But then as soon as she stopped that and discontinued with those ways of obviously eating and living, the weight gained back so quickly, as Jess said. Yeah. So what was, I guess, like, obviously we started working together, Jess. I mentioned there that you were scared and kind of freaked out by this big intake. And obviously it wasn't easy to accustom to right away, because you still held on to a bit of, you know, fear and stuff like that. But you know, like, what can you, like, I remember that for me personally, it was kind of like when it finally just clicked, it was like, ah, and I now saw food in a different light, and it made flow with this lifestyle so much more easier. Why don't you share what it was like for you when that moment kind of clicked, and when it kind of just started to make sense, this new light and way of seeing food, as opposed to how you did back then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it did take a long time for me. It was totally different to anything I've ever done before, and like the total opposite of what I believed in. So when I did actually start eating, you know, and looking at food as in everything's just food, and like actually thinking about what do I actually like to eat instead of what is going to make me lose weight. Yeah, it was just a massive game changer. Just freedom. I didn't binge on weekends. I never felt restricted. I never felt I was on a diet or anything. It was just living. Like, it was just enjoying food. And I still was eating lots of, you know, fibrous foods, lots of new, you know, I love my greens, I love my chicken, but then I could still have like a couple of biscuits, or I love chocolate, so I could have that and not have a guilt attached to it. And I think I don't really remember a time where I ate chocolate and I was like, oh no, like, I'm gonna have to be really good tomorrow, or I'm gonna train really hard. Like, it's just like thick, like, that's what I want to eat. So yeah, I think the biggest thing is refreshing, and it was just the, like, freedom, like actually going, hell yeah, I found something that I know I can do forever. This isn't something that I'm going to do for 8 weeks or 12 months or whatever. It's something I know that it's just the way that I see food now, the way I live. Like, it's just awesome. Like,
yeah, and I can vouch for that 100% as well. And like, for those of you listening, what Jess is meaning by freedom is, it's like, this doesn't mean you get to eat just copious amounts of food and just have limitless intake and stuff like that. Where the freedom comes from is being able to utilize any and all foods to be able to meet your specified intake. So, you know, obviously within Jess's case, I think we had her at around 1,800 calories for the bulk of it, and reducing the focus of cardio, but helping her to focus instead on building strength. So what this did was this created a huge energy burn from her exercise efforts, and allowed her to be able to have such a high intake like this compared to what she was used to before. But then, obviously, just like most people, like when you're fresh to this, it's kind of just like, oh yay, awesome, I can eat some chocolate, I can eat this, and it's all exciting. But then over time, what then happens is that you kind of end up just almost kind of becoming like a clean eater anyway, if that even is a thing. Because what you realize anyway is that what makes you feel the best is eating a large amount of nutrient dense food. And even if you tried to fit in a metric chocolate of chocolate and stuff like that, you're then not going to be able to get in much protein, and you're probably not going to be feeling the best anyway. So it's the balance between both nutrient dense foods and nutrient poor foods that I find make this something that is so sustainable and truly have that sort of element of freedom about you, so that way you can really take control over, you know, obviously your fat loss if that's your goal, or muscle gain if that's your goal, or even just to maintain if that's your goal as well. Now, with yourself, Jess, in terms of where you are now, like obviously we've seen a dramatic loss in fat from obviously all your efforts. You've got more energy. You've definitely restored and built an amazing relationship with food, and you know, your whole sort of paradigm has sort of changed about it entirely. Why don't you share, I guess, some of the big things that you're noticing in terms of how you are now compared to where you were back then? What's some other big things that have changed for you?
Okay, so much has changed, but I suppose the biggest thing is like I'm more prepared, so I do all my meal prep on a Sunday now, so I make time to sit down and sort of work out what I'm going to eat, and then I do a different sort of plan on a weekend. I sort of just gauge on how I'm feeling, and then I'll track it all. So tracking is something I'm definitely really consistent with, and that's been probably key for me. And also just the fact of, if I do go out or if something happens, it's not like the end of the world. I just adjust so I hit, you know, what I need to hit. And I guess the other thing is, it's just that freedom around choosing foods, like not being like, oh, I can never eat that, or being like, oh, it'd be so good if I could eat bread today. Like I can just eat what I want around a really great diet. And like a lot really hasn't changed. It's maybe just like the portion of foods, and I just found that I was thinking I was eating really clean, but I was actually eating a lot of fat foods, like a lot of foods that contained a lot of fat. Even though they may have been good fat, it was still fat. And carbohydrates I was totally afraid of. So now I just smash carbohydrates and I love them.
Carbs are good. Carbs a lot. Agreed.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. That's really cool. And like just touching on something that you shared there about the aspect of like not freaking out when it comes to eating out. I used to find that, you know, for myself, that was a big kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm eating out, shit, it's going to break my routine, like I can't continue my diet, what am I going to do? But yeah, as I'm sure you can probably vouch, is that it's just a means of like, you know, I guess planning ahead, or just going, right, cool, okay, I know that for my intake where I'm at the moment is that I can probably, you know, have about maybe 600 calories or so it's just a means of choice. Always we have the power of choice. Irrespective if we're going out or if we're traveling or, you know, whatever. And I find that people that get results solely based off of routine or a certain diet are the ones who will freak out massively when it comes to that routine being broken, or when they travel and things like that. And likely what's going to happen is that, you know, this is the stop and start type scenario that we usually see, because obviously it's not something that's consistent in the long run, because you and I both know that no day is ever exactly the same, and we're always going to have stuff coming up left, right and center as we go about our day to day, because, well, you know, life isn't entirely always certain. And you know, just touching on what you shared there also, the aspect of being proactive with Sunday meal prep. This is something that's really great for those who are really busy and find that you know, trying to prepare meals and stuff during the week is a bit hard for them. You know, I go through phases of doing this myself personally, because like I find that like if I'm eating the same stuff too frequently, this is when I actually can start to get a bit bored, and like old school Angus would actually then start binging if he got too bored, or, you know, felt like it was just being too restrictive. But I encourage you that if you're someone who is, you know, quite busy, you know, during your week, and you work massive hours and you've got demands with kids or other things like that, you put in those couple of hours on a Sunday, plan out your meals, whether it is like, Jess, do you do 21, 14, like how many meals do you prepare in advance?
So I just do like the main meals, and then I sort of have a bit of leeway, so then if I want to have a dessert or I'm feeling like something different, so I don't eat the same every day.
Yes, that's what we want.
Yeah, but just like, you know, there's just some staple meals that I just love, and that just makes it really easy. Or like, for example, if I'm meant to be home but then something happens and I have to leave and travel to Brisbane or something, then I can just be like, sweet, grab that, and I know that I've got something that's going to be really easy. So just having stuff prepared, because I think you never know what's going to happen, and if you don't have anything and you don't really, especially if you're new to tracking, I found it just worked really well for me. And then also having still quite a lot of leeway for treats or whatever you want to have.
That's exactly it. And Jess's lovely, I guess we'll call it specialty, is epic protein pancakes. I see her post them all the time. They're fantastic. And like, one of the really cool things about this journey is being able to make classic type things macro friendly. So standard pancakes are usually absolutely loaded with carbs. Obviously not that carbs are bad, but that would then equate to it being quite a lot of calories for not too much of a large serve. So like, there's always ways that you can make things really, really macro friendly to obviously be able to then increase the amount of actual food volume that you're eating for a lesser amount of calories. And that's one of the big things that I noticed within seeing Jess's food habits change, was obviously embracing that and kind of thinking, right, how can I eat as much as possible from my intake here? Because obviously that's going to fuel you for, you know, your workouts. It's going to fuel you for your energy that you need throughout the day. And naturally, if you're energized and if you're, you know, enjoying the actual journey, and you're obviously eating foods that are based on your own preference, not what old mate Michelle Bridges or Sarah Wilson or whatever tells you, this is where the real fulfillment comes into it, and what I believe to be one of the biggest keys that make this sort of lifestyle so beneficial and sustainable for the long run. But awesome to, I guess, hear, Jess, some insight into, I guess, where you've been, where you are now. Obviously some monster changes, not only physically but mentally, and as well as knowledge-wise as well. You know, obviously that's clear in your confidence, it's clear in just how you carry yourself now, and I know this is going to then obviously serve you for years to come into the future. Now, what I'd love for you to do, Jess, now, if you don't mind, is I guess maybe drop some words of wisdom from yourself, because obviously some of these people that are going to be connecting with this video might be new to flexible dieting or have never heard of it before. Like, so kind of think of it, Jess, as if you're speaking to old version of Jess who doesn't know anything about flexible dieting. What would be some of the big words of wisdom that you'd give to, you know, yourself in that scenario, do you think?
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest thing. I've actually had a lot of friends contact me since in this journey, and that's the first thing I say. I'm like, you're not eating enough.
Yeah.
And just be open. I mean, if you've tried things before and they haven't worked, then there's obviously a reason for it, and like, food is life. So if you're feeling guilty around food, or you have a bad relationship with yourself or anything like that, it's something that needs to change, because it's part of life and it's going to affect you in all areas of your life. If you don't sort it out, you're not feeling good about yourself. So yeah, they're probably the two things. And just be patient. And I think the biggest thing for me was, even when I was doing the journey, I would be like, oh yeah, no, it doesn't really matter what the scales say. But it took me about 5 or 6 weeks until I really was like, I really don't care, because I could see in my photos that I was taking and the centimetre loss, and then obviously doing an in-body scan of the changes that was happening in my body, and just having better energy, better sleep, and just feeling awesome every day without that guilt. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing for me, is just no guilt around food and just enjoying life. And yeah, the longer you do it too, and especially if you are into you know, lifting heavy, the heavier you lift, basically when you start to, you know, gain that muscle and lose that body fat, you get to eat even more.
Yes.
Close to 2,000 calories now, so like, I can macro in grilled if I want to. It's just awesome.
How good is that? That's fantastic, isn't it? And yeah, just touched on a few things that you said there, Jess, is like that aspect and that mentality of like thinking that you've tried everything, because I used to think like that as well, and obviously Jess used to think like that as well. And if you're listening and if you think that you've tried everything, well, obviously you haven't, because if you did, well, then you would have discovered this and you would be nailing it, and you could be already where you want to be already. So I encourage you to be, you know, open-minded, and you know, don't close yourself off to possibility, because you're not doomed to be forever overweight or anything like that. It slowly just comes down to lifestyle choices and giving your body a reason to let go of fat so that you actually move forward. Because understand that nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're not seeing change from your efforts so far, like, change and results isn't going to magically come just because you try harder of doing what obviously isn't working. This is about being open-minded to moving forward to bigger and better things. And you know, as Jess said as well, not being guilty, so not feeling guilty by eating certain foods or anything like that, because no food is inherently good or inherently bad or super or anything like that. All food's got calories, all calories can be used by your body. It's about utilizing both sides of food to be able to fuel you for lifestyle, performance, happiness, and just for general fulfillment in life. But that's awesome, Jess. Thanks so much for being absolutely real. One last question I'd love to ask you is that, obviously for those who have maybe also been in the journey for a while and find that they struggle with consistency and stuff like that, this was obviously something that you used to struggle with, and you know, obviously what changed when it came to us being a team together and coaching. I'd love for you to, I guess, drop some insight and recommendation as to why it would be an awesome move for the listener who, you know, might be lost and stuff like that, why it would be an awesome move for them to consider coaching from myself and being able to move forward. Why don't you share, I guess, you know, some insight there?
The biggest thing is accountability. It's so much easier to go off track or not commit to something if you're not accountable. So I think when you've actually, you know, in this instance, got a coach and got someone there that's guiding you and helping you, and also a support forum on Facebook, and just feeling that not just accountability but support as well, I think is absolutely key to being successful in any sort of goals that you have for your, you know, health, mind, body. The other thing is to, like you just said, like if you feel like you've tried everything and you're still not feeling good around food or your body, then why not? Like, what have you really got to lose? You've already tried other stuff, and you just may, like, instead of thinking about what if it doesn't work, think about what if it does and what that really means for you. Because I know for myself, before I even contacted Angus, I was in the same position, and it was very scary, but I just knew that I needed something, and I just hadn't found it yet. So, and it's funny, when you make that decision, you open up more people that are doing the same thing or have that knowledge or in flexible dieting will come into your life, and you'll just see it in a whole different way, and it will just transform you. So do it.
Absolute game changer for sure. Well, huge props and gratitude to you, mighty Jess. Thanks so much for your time today, and looking forward to hearing of all the gains and all the progress you continue to make in your journey. So catch you later, superstar. Big love.
Thank you.
How good was that? Awesome to be able to share some insight with the legendary Jess, and I hope that you took some epic takeaways from seeing that video. Hopefully what it did was that it just raised and increased your awareness as to just what is actually possible and how awesome and flexible and enjoyable fat loss can actually be. Because the truth of the matter is that with what you're likely doing at the moment, it's probably not, you know, too easy to adhere to. Let's face it, there's probably a lot of restriction and you're just not enjoying it. This makes progression very, very hard, and therefore there's no fulfillment for you. And for as long as these things here are lacking, I pretty much promise you that you're not going to find or build the successful, lean, mean, tight and toned body that you desire. So what I'd encourage you is that from seeing this video is that the next step for you is just to get in touch with me. Let's get in touch for a Dream Body Breakthrough call. This is exactly how I connected with Jess all those months ago. And you know, obviously, hey, look at where she is now. She saved herself so much time, effort and money by choosing to align with me, as opposed to continuing to go along the lines of what she was doing before. So what this Dream Body Breakthrough call entails is probably about an hour of us just chatting together. All right, it's going to be fairly intensive because I like to ask a lot of questions so that I can really gauge some insight into where you are, what's happening, what's gotten you, you know, to I guess where you are now, where exactly you want to be, and then map out for you everything that it's going to take for you to achieve what it is that you want. So my promise to you within this call is to basically highlight so that you become very, very clear as to why you haven't achieved the results that you want, how you can achieve the results that you want, and just leave the call with epic clarity as to what it's going to take to move forward. And then obviously if we feel that we're a match together, just like it was for me and Jess, I'll share with you and discuss potential of us working together. But either way, I just want to give this as an invitation for me to connect with you. Please take it if you are genuinely serious about changing your body and you're not ready to give up on your dreams. But either way, I hope you found some value in this video. I wish you the best on your journey and have an amazing day.